Welcome to Wild Times in Minnesota Lake Country with Kelly and Carol. Happy New Year. It's 2021. It's a new year in Minnesota Lake Country. We received some more snow and inches of ice from Mother Nature due to the season. And that was our New Year gift from Mother Nature. So we're going to talk about how creatures in the natural world stay warm, and also glean a few tips for our own warmth as we get outdoors and enjoy the weird, wild, and wonderful months of winter. And of course, Kelly has her mystery sound just ahead.
Always a strange sound for people to guess from nature. Sometimes it's not always just peace and quiet out there.
Right. So things that go bump in the night or day.
Yeah.
We like to cover those too.
So extra snow. I love it. I don't know about you, but I kind of enjoy having a little snow to play in.
Yes, indeed.
You don't want cold weather and not have snow on the ground or have yucky snow on the ground. There's all kinds of different kinds of snow. Sometimes it's like sand, and sometimes it's really wet, and a lot of times it's pretty heavy, making different crunching sounds. We'll have to do snow science sometime.
Yes. I actually got out. I was trying out a new microphone, and I did record my footsteps in 26-degree weather in the snow, and it did sound different. But that's another episode.
Different than 30 degrees and different than minus 20 degrees.
Right. We haven't, unfortunately for that show purpose, we haven't had the minus 20 yet.
Right.
But
yeah.
We shall get there. I'm sure, as my name is Carol. We will have those sub-zero temperatures coming to a town near you soon.
Right. And my favorite kind of snow is the kind that will compact a little. Yes. Not because I like snowball fights, but I do like to create snow art.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Some sculptures.
Or a snow woman. I usually make a snow woman, but some kind of snow art.
Yes. A snow puppy. Snow dog.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kelly, first, before we get into how we might keep ourselves warm when we're out enjoying the weather, maybe a lot of people got some Christmas sweaters or socks or something. But why don't you talk a little bit about some of the wild creatures out there and how they stay warm, the ones that aren't sleeping, or the ones that aren't hibernating, that are out gathering food, or like the winter, are out and about in the winter. How do they keep warm?
Yeah, so as they come out of their den, they put their coat and scarf on, and off they go to play in the snow. No, it is pretty neat. In the fall, there's actually some changes that happen, those hormonal changes, along with the hormones that make them want to hibernate or go into a torpor state. Also, for those that are out making tracks in the snow, have an opportunity to grow some special fur. At least for the mammals, they're growing some special fur to be able to survive that cold weather. So they have a very special coat on. So when they, for example, deer, as they start to grow that coat, their fur is coming in with hollow hairs instead of skinny solid hairs. And those hollow hairs, of course, can hold airspace that is just crucial when it comes to staying warm, and being able to hold that airspace next to their skin. So animals like deer that have, of course, a lot of fur covering, their fur looks like it kind of sticks out even more. So they look fatter, even though they're probably pretty thin. They don't have as much food to eat. They're really struggling when it comes to eating food, or finding food, I should say, to survive. Those hairs come in, they're kind of spread out. They're holding that airspace against their fur. And then, of course, there's also under fur, or a layer underneath, that helps hold that together, or hold that heat in. Some animals have dark skin. So if in order to absorb some of that warmth against their skin. There's animals like, of course, this is a coyote here. If you're
Coyote.
coyote, Wile E. Coyote. Again, also, having those a lot of thick fur, so it grows in much more dense. And the coat density, so animals like beaver, fox, coyote, wolf, mink, fisher, river otters, weasels, all grow in a more dense coat. And so that animals like the deer can survive, that coat is like, I don't know, if you ever buy a coat, you're looking at the rating. Oh, this is rated, at minus 30 degrees. Well, the deer coat little tag would say minus 30 degrees. and maybe a coyote, I don't know what maybe it's even more, or a wolf, even more so. But that dense layer of underfur also is just critical when it comes to holding in that heat. So, but there are a few other animals. So you think of animals that are changing their coats, like the weasels and the snowshoe hares that grow in that white fur. So that is at least 27% more more of an insulating factor than their regular coat. I suppose that can kind of compare to insulating your house, what factor you put in the insulation in your walls. So when that white hair grows in, not only is it more dense, but it also has that density factor factors into the color. So like, why would brown fur not be as warm as white fur? And that's because of the pigments that are in there. So if you have brown fur, that brown fur is filled with pigments that use up space. And the white fur is not. So there's more airspace in that piece of fur, that hair, to be able to hold more airspace and be warmer. So not only is it a camouflage advantage, of course, for those critters, but also the science of the makeup of that hair is also making it a little more insulating. So there's lots of ways that our mammals can stay warm.
Are you saying when I start getting gray hair, my head will stay warmer?
maybe with less pigment in your hair, it is warmer on your head.
Okay. We might be able to do that test very soon.
That could be true. Yeah. So the hairs that are longer and stick up are guard hairs. Mm-hmm. There's that dense under fur, and then the pigment layer of the skin, and then of course right underneath that is our fat layer. Well, I say ours because I'm working on mine.
That's what we all did over Christmas.
That's what we did.
The extra cookies here and
a little bit of blubber there. Again, it's very good for insulating.
So is this very similar? I mean, we're not talking about dogs. I mean, we are going to talk about dogs in a second, but it's very similar to, when I take my dog Pearl out and we come in and it gets a little warmer, all those tiny little hairs are probably coming off. That dense underfur is what she loses when it gets warmer. If you don't have access to a wild animal, but you have a dog, it's probably very similar, wouldn't you say? Or
absolutely,
like a coyote, yeah. A coyote.
Right. And even deer look funny and look really scruffy and odd color. You can, squirrels the same way. In the spring, they have this very odd color because they're shedding a lot of that underfur. Because they, in the summertime, you don't want heat to be held in, or you'll.
So just question too, and I don't know, is the squirrel what? The squirrel just tapped on your window and said, no, I watched the squirrels and they are a different color, but how long does it take for them to, or at what temperature is the fur, are the fine fur generating, and when do they lose it? Like, does it have to be warm for a month, or is it a week? Or, we've kind of had some fluctuations in our temperature We're seeing 30s for goodness sakes here in January.
Yeah.
So do they lose some of that, or is there a fine line, or at what point do they lose the fur and what point do they regrow the fur, or do they?
You would think it's temperature oriented, but likely it's more connected to the amount of daylight.
Oh,
because that's really what's going to create the hormonal effect of how they make those changes, whether they're adding fur in the fall or releasing it in the spring. It's probably a daylight factor. I wonder how that factors into our pets.
yes.
Like, they must also be affected by the length of daylight, but if they're inside a lot, does that matter? I don't
Right. Well, but the thing is, they're the outdoor pets and they're the indoor pets. There's the outdoor pets and the indoor pets. And I'm sure, if Pearl was outside, all winter long, she'd probably have a little bit more undergrowth than what she has now.
That's true.
But she still begs for treats regardless.
Yes.
The more treats she gets, the more fat layer she has.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and even, gosh, it always fascinates me that animals like beaver and mink and otter can swim in that freezing cold water.
They're inspiring. Yes. It's amazing.
Yes.
And they're very sleek.
Sleek. Yes. But definitely a layer of blubber under their skin that makes that happen, as well as the fur. And I'm sure, especially with beavers, there's that oily layer to, so they're not, the water may not even reach the skin to, because of that, the type of fur that they have on them. I think you should grow some fur and go for a winter swim.
I'll try that, Kelly.
I
think it's probably more beneficial for me to grow some blubber, some more blubber, and go for a swim.
But yeah, it's certainly, when you're, I don't know if you've ever done the sauna and then jump in the water. Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's what it feels like for an otter after.
Maybe. Yes.
All right. Now that we're warm, let's go for a dive. That could be good. So birds are also pretty amazing when it comes to surviving the cold. Obviously, a lot of them will change their diet so that they can survive. But one bird that I think is like crazy good at it are redpolls. And there are some other finches, I think, that are really good at they're like just made for winter activity. So birds, again, it's that airspace thing. So they're fluffing out their feathers and holding them out enough that they can hold that air, keep that warm air, create the airspace next to their skin so that they can survive. So you'll see them puffed out, sitting on branches and such. And at night, they often find a cavity and will, a cavity, not like a tooth cavity, but a tree cavity, and will find a place to, to get out of the wind. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it's with other birds. So sometimes you'll, even bird houses, like bluebird houses, there might be a whole bunch of birds in there for the night. But certainly just areas, cavities, crooks in trees and things like that they'll wait out the evening. You'll also see that when they perch on branches, you can't see their feet.
Yes.
So they're kind of hiding their, keeping the feathers that they have around their belly to keep their legs and feet warm as well.
I've noticed that these little birds that come to my bird feeder, they sit in the bush and then they look about 3 times the size that they actually are, because when they fly up to the bird feeder, then they're all svelte again. But they look like little puffballs sitting in the bushes, and even on the ground they kind of puff out and you don't see their little feet. But yes, they transform back into their their little selves again when they're ready for flight or come to the feeder, and they look like a totally different bird.
The shape of them, and they are like a ball. They do get quite round when they're all fluffed up like that. It's kind of funny. Yep. So and not most birds don't have feathers on their legs. There are a few, like the snowy owl and I think grouse. And a few birds that'll have some feathers that grow down their legs, but most don't. And so the legs that are exposed also have to stay warm. They can't fluff out the feathers on those. So how do those stay warm? Or you'd see like ducks and swans standing on ice, and it doesn't bother them at all because they have this amazing thing happening in their legs that creates warmth, and that has to do with their arteries and veins and how they're intertwined and sharing heat. So if you're a plumber or somebody that installs heating systems, or if you know a lot about like the air exchange system in a house, this is exactly kind of how that works. So the blood that's in the vein that's coming from the heart is going to release some of the heat in there to the arteries. And by releasing that heat before it hits the foot, it's going to lose less heat that way. Okay. So it'll lose the heat to the artery that's going back up, unless I got that backwards. So the warmth is going to be so there's warmer blood going up into the body than going down. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the veins and arteries are exchanging heat before they get to the foot, so that there's not as much heat lost. Okay, that's why they can stand on the cold and grab onto the metal little bars on the it doesn't bird feeder. It doesn't affect them. Yeah. Yep. It's the countercurrent heat exchange system. I think I have a heat exchange system in my house. Okay. You got some birds working for you? Yeah. Yes. Well, how do you stay warm then? Right. So talking about how humans stay warm, because we will cross that. We will cross over to that eventually. I mean, now that the temperatures are freezing outside and, we're in the 20s, the teens, but there are various forms of ways of keeping warm by layering. I think the key is to layer regardless, once it gets to be about, 40, you want to kind of start putting on those layers. But, if it depends on what kind of activities you're doing too. But I found some information, not only from kind of a sports organization, like for athletes, and how to work out in the cold, because I know that some of our sports are going back, or people just getting out and skiing and snowshoeing and even running. Need to consider some other things. You want to kind of stay light. You don't want to run with a puff jacket on, but you want to also, wick away the moisture from your body. So we have some information from various sources today, and I will do some of the sharing from NOAA, which is the Weather Service, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. And they have this information about, dressing for cold weather. You kind of want to think onion. You want to think layers. So if it's chilly, which is probably what we're in right now, like high teens, low 20s, 30s, you definitely want to have a base layer on, which is something that is, not cotton. They say avoid any cotton because that just gets wet and it doesn't wick away from your skin. It just gets wetter and heavier and it stays with you. So you want something that's kind of a polyester or synthetic fiber next to your skin.
So you want to put that on your top and your bottom, and then you want a little bit, another layer over, and usually that's wool or another synthetic, a little thicker, kind of like the sweatshirt I'm wearing. It's a woolly kind of thing. So you put that over, and then
Is that a good time for fleece?
Yes, fleece or wool.
Okay.
Not real. I mean, because even fleece can be thick or thin, but you kind of want a little bit heavier fleece and like a wool sweater, I think, over. And then if it's windy or if it's rainy, you want another kind of shell layer over you. And that is supposed to obviously keep you, the wet and the wind away from you. You want air vents so you can vent the perspiration away as well. So that's kind of the chilly mode. So you want basically like 3 layers. And then once it gets colder, dropping down to the single digits or, sub-zero, like maybe -1, -2, not bone chilling cold, but pretty cold. And you want to just add, you still want that base layer, but you can add a little bit more to, the next layer, whether it's a fleece or a wool sweater. You might want to put on another layer of wool or fleece or just a very thin layer. And then of course the outer layer to keep out the wind or wet snow. And of course, waterproof shoes or boots. You want to keep those feet dry, because I found personally, if your feet get wet, you're gone. That's it. Party's over. Go inside. And then of course you want a hat if it's extremely cold. Some people, when it's just chilly out, they put, maybe ear warmers on or a headband, which is fine, but you do lose heat from your head. I know there's studies every other year that say you don't lose any heat from your head, but you do. The National College Athletic Association also says, you do lose a lot of heat from your head. So you want to keep your head warm by wearing a hat. And if it's just chilly, cover your ears because those are susceptible to frostbite as well. So that's cold weather, but extremely cold. That's when you bring out the puffy coats and face masks. Yes, the face masks, warm hat. You have that base layer. You just keep building on the layers. And of course, the face mask comes into play. Just think layering, think onion when you're dressing. You always want that base layer. So if there's something that you want to invest in, I would say a good base layer. The polyester, the long underwear, for sure. And then, you could put regular clothes over that. I think I don't take my long underwear off until May.
Really?
I've learned. No. But again, too, it's all about acclimating to the cold weather. And that's a process too. Not to say dressing for cold weather doesn't help immensely, but also acclimating for the weather also allows you to stay out a little bit longer. And it takes about 3 to 7 days to acclimate yourself to the cold weather. So
I wonder how long do you have to be outside to acclimate? Like,
they say just a few minutes, just
really?
Every day, go out just for a few minutes, maybe a minute longer. And then start staying out a little bit longer. But that's why they say, how 40 degrees in the fall seems a lot colder than 40 degrees in the spring. It's just that acclimation. So you're more acclimated to the cold. And then once you feel that 40 degrees, of course, it feels a lot warmer. But if you just start at 40 degrees, feels a lot cooler. So, and
I
there's
think
also
detrimental things that people do when they're trying to prepare for cold is shoes that are too small.
Yes.
Or tight shoes and jeans.
Yes.
I feel like those are both like the worst. You can, you think, oh, I'm going to put on a really thick pair of socks, and then your shoe is too small to wear a thick pair of socks.
That's where that air circulation comes in, I think, that we were talking about with the animals. So you want a little bit of air, yes.
for
to
sure.
warm the tootsies. And also that's why they say gloves are better than, no, they say that mittens are better than gloves, is because you have a little bit more warmth, a little bit more room in gloves as opposed to, mittens as opposed to gloves. I'm trying to look at my hand and think at the same time, and it doesn't work. So mittens.
I found a layer for my mittens. So, because I'm doing some photography outside and I'm constantly taking my mittens off to, use the buttons on the camera and stuff. And so I found a thin layer as a thin layer glove that goes under. Actually, it even has the fingertips out so I can still press buttons. But whoa, that made such a big difference to have that, not every time I take my mitten off, my hand isn't fully exposed to the cold.
Well, and I think with our smartphones too, like I still use my phone to take a lot of pictures and stuff. And sometimes they have the mitts or the gloves in particular with the little swipey thing, and that kind of wears out. That just does not work for me. But they do make gloves with the little swipey thing if you do use your phone and you're swiping and you need to utilize your phone a lot in the cold. But even equipment doesn't work in the cold. So there's no layering for phones, unfortunately, other than keeping them close to your body and warm, but the batteries lose power very quickly too.
And I have long underwear that's very thin, and then I like wearing fleece pants.
Yes. And
then my outer layer of my snow pants.
Yes.
So I have 3 layers.
And snow pants, you have to be a little careful too. I mean, you're outside quite a bit, Kelly, I think, with your work and such. And, like skiers and snowboarders and like downhill skiers and snowboarders have a little bit fluffier snow pants. But like cross-country skiers or runners, you definitely want to stick to the thinner layers. And they always say dress a little bit, you should feel cold at the beginning because you will warm up once that blood is circulating. And I think the key too is to keep moving when you're out in the cold. So if your goal is to get out and enjoy the weather and you're moving around, you probably want to use thinner layers and not bulk up so much unless it's like 40 below. But if you're moving at all, you're going to get hot pretty quick. You're going to warm up pretty quick, and then it's not fun to kind of walk around with a Michelin man. But if you're just going to stand in your yard and look up at the sky and not move at all.
Standing still for a long time.
Yes, so if you're just kind of set, it's probably good to have, you could probably pack a little pack of warmer clothes for sitting. But when you're moving, you kind of want to be thinner layers. You can use more layers, but just thinner so you can move your limbs and get the blood circulating too.
Yeah. I think I usually have 4 layers on top, and it's misleading. You mentioned the fluffy coats. I find I don't like wearing a thick coat on the for an outer layer. I like a thinner windbreaker, and then 3, the under garment, and then 2 layers, and then my outer coat. Right. But I don't like that outer coat to be too big because it's hard to move in if it's so big. And it's really just to keep the wind off, because the other layers and the airspace that you've created under that is really what keeps you nice and warm.
Well, and I know that when we're sledding, like kids sledding, it kind of serves a couple purposes, is that they can stay out longer. And also it provides a little cushion if they, fall off their sled or get pushed off their sled. But, then I would say that's fine if you're sledding and stuff. It's more enjoyable if you don't hurt yourself too, if you're sledding or you're going to fall or something involved. But again, if you want to check that out, that was the NOAA graphic that we had. I think they put it out every year. You can go out on their website and look at it if you would like to learn more about that. And also, if you're one of those scientific people that like to have everything explained to you in the scientific terms, you can go on. And I think there's a few studies out there with the National Collegiate Association on Sports Medicine.
Ooh.
That have the outdoor training, how to prevent injuries in the cold, because that's a whole nother show and a whole nother set of skills that I don't have.
Well, who knew you could nerd out on cold weather gear?
Right, but I did check. Okay, and if you are the type of person who wants to take a dip in the water, not that there's a whole lot of open water in Lake Country, but I would say that's a situation where you want to definitely acclimate yourself to cold water by getting in the shower and turning on the cold water for 10 seconds more every day before you attempt that.
Norwegians and Finnish Northerners like to do, don't you know?
Yes. So, if you're one of those types, maybe you've grown up with that, but if it's something you want to do in 2021 for God knows why, you might want to do a little research on that, or get a wetsuit too.
You eat lutefisk before you go, it helps.
Oh, yeah. Right. Well, Kelly, I think it's about time for the mystery sound. And do you have any clues for us today, or is it just going to be a straight?
Oh, so do I have no, this one, I kind of picked an easier one this time. I feel like that.
That's okay.
Yeah. But so here's see what you think. I tried to find something that sounded like a little bit like a New Year's like noisemaker. I was trying to, what's a New Year's sound that would be great, and okay, so this is what I came up with. See if this sounds New Year's-y to you.
Okay.
That's as close as I can.
I think if I heard that sound in the morning, yes, that would be a little annoying. But I have heard that, and I'll have to ask you after we listen to this Mr. Bird sound. I'll have to ask you another.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so, well, I'm guessing that it's probably, is it a larger type bird?
I in terms of
as compared to like a little nuthatcher, or is it in between a nuthatcher and a blue jay?
Yep.
Is it a blue jay?
Yes. It's not in between. It actually is. Right. So I don't, a lot of people are like, oh, those old blue jays are just, but they are really beautiful, especially in the winter when you have those bright colors against the white background. I love seeing blue jays in the winter. They're just their pattern,
those little blue dots, specks on their wings are just so perfect. I mean, they're just works of art.
They are. They can be a little I don't know.
Annoying.
Not, yeah. Yeah,
I have awakened to blue jays in the morning.
Yes.
So that's why it was kind of annoyingly familiar.
Yes, they're
oh yeah.
Sound. Yes, their JJ call. Loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Compared to a little more musical note.
Yes, I hear that quite often. They're one of the first birds to wake up in the morning too, those and the robins. It seems like when Pearl and I are out on our morning walks.
Oh, are you seeing a lot of robins this winter?
No, but I'm just saying in general.
Yes. Overall, yeah, that's true. Robins are early singers as well. Yep. So, but blue jays have, I was kind of nerding out on the colors a little of the blue jay. I think that blue is so vibrant. And somebody told me once, did you know that the color of feathers never fade? Like if you found a feather and you kept it for 30 years, it would still be as blue as it was before. And I don't know that that's really true. So, but anyway, the other cool thing about feathers and the color, obviously when we see color and winter, it just seems like it shows up a lot when because you can kind of be blinded by the whiteness of snow. But things that have color to them are, of course, because of the way the light reflects into our eyes and the way we see it. So that happens with feathers as well. But something particular about blue jays is that it's very dependent on on how their feathers are shaped. So there's barbs in each one of the feathers, and the barbs of the feathers are shaped such that the blue that shows up is because, from the front side of the feather is because of the way the light reflects into your eye.
Oh, interesting.
That makes sense. So, and with blue, so in some birds like cardinals and, that have reddish or the yellows, are from the carotenoids and actually, can be, because of the plants and things that they eat, that's probably most notable in like the pink flamingos, right? They're pink because of the food that they eat, and that, reflects in the color of the feathers that you see. And then there's also pigments in the feathers. So there are some pigments in there that will, especially the browns, those pigments shine through. So if you have a brown bird, but with the blue jay and these blue feathers, it's kind of the shape of the feather. So, so the way it's just kind of the way the light reflects here. So I'm not going to advocate that you keep bird feathers because it's illegal. but on occasion, people find bird feathers
To be fair.
in their yard. I've just had yeah. Side note: it's illegal to keep bird feathers. But so here's a blue. So I'm holding a blue jay feather that I found by the bird feeder.
Okay.
You can see how lovely blue it is. So if you were to, and the back side is more brownish color. But if you were to put backlight on this blue jay feather, it would change the way the light comes through, and the feather would look brown.
Oh, interesting.
If you ever get a chance to do that, it is fascinating because it totally happens. So you're looking at the feather, and it's blue, and it's reflecting blue. But if there's backlight, it looks brown. It turns brown. It's so bizarre because of the shape of the barbs and how those reflect, back into your eye.
That's one of those weird yet wonderful things in nature.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Very cool. So our blue jay is our mystery sound, and of course they're probably in some evergreen near you today. Okay, so do females and males have a little? It's usually the female that is not quite doesn't have the coloring. It's kind of like the cardinals; they're a little less spectacular. But are blue jays the same? Do they all look the same?
They all look pretty, the same.
So there's no dullness of color with the female. You can't tell a female and a male apart in any way, shape, or form?
There probably is a way, but it's not obvious.
Based on color. But it's not based on color like the cardinal would be.
Like the cardinal, that's pretty obvious. Or,
right.
Purple.
Okay. Okay, so my question was, I've heard this, and this is one of those birds that just kind of sings spring to me whenever I hear it, and it's probably here all year round, but for some reason, I think it was the day after the winter solstice, I woke up and this bird was singing, and I'm like, oh, okay, the days are getting longer in spring. But it's that bird that goes, it has that little like.
Are you saying you don't know what that bird is?
No, what's that call? It's like,
well, it sounds like it sounds like the chickadee.
Oh, okay. Are they here all year round?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What? I mean, do they just have different calls?
In winter, you hear their chickadee dee dee chickadee.
Yeah.
And the more D's, the more scared they are.
Okay.
But they also have a cheeseburger call. Cheeseburger.
Oh yeah, that's the one that I hear. What's the cheeseburger call then?
That's a chickadee.
No, but what does that, is that just because they're relaxed and they want a cheeseburger?
Well, yeah. Because they're really hungry and they're young. Well, that's the call. You usually hear that more in the springtime.
Yeah.
And yeah, more of a
Is it
mating.
because it's getting light? It's because it's starting to get lighter outside? Huh?
All kinds of
Or warmer? Maybe they sense a warm up.
the light change.
Well, the next time, so when you come back with the chickadee, we'll learn more about that.
Okay. That'll be one of my. Okay, so
Okay.
the cheeseburger call.
I'll file that in the back of your head.
It could be coming
Okay.
near you soon.
Well, Kelly, we'll have to wrap up our episode 7 and ways to keep warm, ways our creatures are out there staying warm. Hopefully we won't have too many cold days where we'll have to get the puffy coats on. But anyway, hope you learned a little bit more about keeping warm and about our wild, wonderful, wacky world around us. And Kelly, thanks so much for the mystery bird, the blue jay. And again,
Yep.
yes.
That's
And
good.
until we chat again, have a wild time.
We'll see you outdoors.